Hi, I'm Carla Roper, a Green Spring Extension Master Gardener, and I'm here at the historic house at Green Spring Gardens. I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite plants, the cardoon, Cinera cardunculus. And cardunculus, the species name, means resembling a small thistle. And you can see these beautiful purple flowers do resemble a thistle. It has deeply cut grayish silver gray leaves and then these beautiful purple blossoms. And as we go around, you'll see more like this. But this is a bold statement right here next to the front door. Unfortunately, not as bold as it might look because we've had some pretty dry weather here. Cardoon is a tender perennial grown in zones 7 to 9. At Green Spring here, we're in zone 7. This plant is native to the Mediterranean and was actually popular in ancient Greek and Roman cuisine. And it's a wonderful plant. The texture contrasts with the medium and small texture of most of the surrounding plants here, and a great plant to grow in your garden. We're here right along the edge of the concentric garden at Green Spring Gardens, and we have a very young cardoon here growing. Cardoon are easy to grow from seed, or they can be grown from root cuttings as well. And the plant requires a well-drained, moist, fertile soil. And in its first year, it will become a beautiful urn-shaped plant. And you can see the beginnings of that here, but you'll have to come back to see the striking plants these become once they grow a little. They do fairly well around here. Green Spring never covers them and they make it through the winter. I live nearby and mine sometimes do not make it through the winter. I think because my soil might not be as well drained. They stay too wet, but it's supposed to help. Also, if it's colder, to cut these back, cover them with mulch, and then put like a bucket and then a tarp over it to help make them last through the winter. I'm in front of the edible garden at Green Spring Gardens, and we have a cardoon here in bloom. Cardoons have an edible stalk, and they're closely related to the globe artichoke. And the flowers buds are supposedly edible, but are considered a poor substitute for that globe artichoke, which is much more tasty. But these plants are generally still grown in the U.S. as an ornamental rather than an edible, but it's still grown in Southern Europe and Northern Africa as a food crop. And it was grown in colonial gardens as well. Okay, as I mentioned, the cardoon stalks are edible, and I've read varying accounts of whether you should blanch those stalks by wrapping them with paper or burlap. Now, I did find a 2015 recipe by Mark Bittman of the New York Times, and he made it sound delicious with mushrooms and breadcrumbs. And I've never had them, but I'm tempted to try that recipe, and I might if I have enough plants that I want to sacrifice. But I think the plants are wonderful as they are. But if you want to do that, it's a great choice for your edible landscape, even if you don't eat it. Here we are at the corner of the edible garden at Green Spring, and you can see the very large cardoon here that's got to be at least 7 feet tall. And it's incredibly striking plant with these vivid purple flowers that are loved by the bees. You will see them flying all around it to go to those flowers. Now those flowers are supposed to be good for cutting and drying, although I have not actually tried that. But this plant can also be part of a mixed border. And as you can see here, possibly, it's part of the border along the edible garden, and it looks great with blue flowered plants and white flowered plants, and paired with other silver leaf plants like maybe lamb's ear or dusty miller. And so it can be an all-purpose plant. And this plant, before it started blooming, was incredible. Once they start blooming, the stems tend to elongate, and to me are a little different. I mean, they're not as impressive, but they're impressive in a different way because of those striking purple blue flowers. And without the flowers, they're impressive just by, they're so bulky looking and a real architectural accent to your garden. I'm here on the edge of the fruit garden at Green Spring, and you can see another very tall cardoon. And the roots and stems of these older plants are quite amazing. They get quite thick. These plants get a seed head that looks like this eventually. Unfortunately, the plants are considered invasive in California, and if you could see all the seeds that this has, and this is a single seed head and it's full of seeds, you can see how it could spread all over. But here, it's not an invasive, and it's a wonderful plant, as I've mentioned before, as a standalone accent plant with its dramatic foliage, and as part of the border. It's just a wonderful plant, and I encourage you to come back to Green Spring to see all the beautiful plants here. They're just a wonderful plant, and you really should try growing it.